Stripper news for autism.
Welcome to Stripper News. This week, we're talking about autism in the media, and we're trying to demystify it.
And maybe you'll learn something.
Last month, during the Autism Awareness Month, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
The United States Secretary of Health and Human Services
said that autism was a tragedy caused by the vaccines.
We are doing this to our children, and we need to put an end to it.
The fuck?
Autism is a neurodevelopmental variation, not a disease and not a tragedy. It's not your conspiracy theory starter pack.
Autism has been framed as a tragedy for years, a problem to solve, a monster to fear, a disease to cure.
Why does everyone freak out about autism like it's a horror movie trailer? Coming soon, red flags, social differences, no eye contact, run.
Starring famous cast members Tim Burton, Anthony Hopkins, Holly Madison, Dan Aykroyd, Courtney Love, and many others.
Kennedy's statements were inaccurate and downright harmful. He said, why are we reading this? This is shit.
Stripper News. Stripper News. Autism can be seen as a neurotype, much like other variations in human identity like race, gender, and sexuality, and is a natural part of human diversity.
It reflects differences in communication, social interactions,
Sensory processing,
and not deficits. That's an outdated viewpoint that often leads to shitty stereotypes. Those undermine the uniqueness and variations of individuals.
and the real social deficit, the double empathy problem.
Autistic and non-autistic people just have mismatched communication styles.
Sounds like a language barrier.
Exactement.
Stripper News. Hi, I'm Diney,
And I'm Noah,
and we're in the champagne room,
demystifying autism.
and we're here with
Prada, Cass,
and Hazel.
Is this anyone's first time in the strip club?
yes.
Are there things that we love about autism?
It's very difficult to live an authentic life that you feel is true to yourself in the 21st century, especially with social media. And one thing that autistic people are very resilient to is the pressure to conform. They can't help but be themselves, and that's been an experience I've really enjoyed and feel that I've profited from.
I really like my sensory memory because I'm a writer. It really helps me write.
It definitely intersects with like every single thing in my life. My job, how I go out, who I talk to, my friends, how I act. It's all because of autism. I do heavily love myself. Yeah, I do love it.
Stripper News. What if we framed one's obsessions as just a passion?
Or self-soothing being just a body regulation technique instead of weird?
Or having a strong sense of moral justice being a very, very good thing?
Do I question your obsession with football? Does that make you strange?
A lot of sounds and lighting are just downright overwhelming. Period.
Stripper News.
Are there any misconceptions that you would want to address?
When people hear about masking, they sort of understand it as a defense mechanism, and it's not quite that. It's more of an adaptation. It's something that lets us interact with others. Putting on the face, lets me just do my job in a way that I expect, and that's really nice to have.
100%. In moments of sex work, you can have your mask on and you can still display the genuine intimacy that's inside of you, and you can still display things that might be underneath the mask while still having the mask on, especially with certain clients that have earned that trust. Still requires you to keep a mask on, for your own self-preservation.
I hate the whole trope that autistics are innocent and we don't know how to do anything and we can't be in a romantic relationship. You need to go out, actually meet autistics, because we are so capable of doing so much.
A lot of sex workers are autistic.
I have an unpopular opinion that BDSM was started by autistic people, and I fully believe. Why don't you want to see? Why do you like pain? That's a little autistic of you.
Facts and theories here at Stripper News.
Stripper News.
Oh, my titties out.
When we talk about autism, it's a threat.
We turn difference into danger, and that's by design. Organizations that like to call themselves advocacy organizations, such as Autism Speaks, the messaging prioritizes parents and people who are non-autistic over the voices of autistic people.
We've been taught to fear autism and not to understand it. Stripper News.
Does having a diagnosis resonate with you?
I was in a detention for until I received the diagnosis, for about 50 to 60% of my time at school. And so having a diagnosis got me in contact with a special ed teacher who was able to help me figure out my place within the standard school system.
I think that like autism is a very complex disorder. Because it's so complex, it pertains to me so well and it resonates really well. So I do like the fact that I have like a word to call it, you know?
Whether you're self-diagnosed or diagnosed professionally, you're a part of the autistic community.
Stripper news! Stripper news! Is there anything that you want to see in the media?
As an autistic person, I watch a lot more like Vimeo and YouTube.
You have to make an effort into putting real life instances. A lot of us are just more than capable. So seeing that type of representation is very important, I think.
Autistic characters is very affirming. I think it creates richer stories the more neurodivergence we have folded in. I'd really like to see autistic creators get out there more and really utilize some of these sort of cultural megaphones that we have available.
So amplify autistic voices.
Stripper news!
Welcome to Stripper News. If you want to introduce yourself a little bit to like what you do, what your stage name is.
My name is Cami Strella. I've been in the adult industry for about 7 years now in basically every capacity. I started off originally as a sugar baby, and then I transitioned into working at a strip club originally as a cocktail waitress, and eventually that got super old. I was working in 12-hour shifts in heels and not making very much money and spilling tons of drinks on customers pretty much every night, and I was not about that. It was really hard work. So I eventually started actually dancing and did that for a few years. And of course, the pandemic hit. But right before the pandemic hit, I ended up making an OnlyFans, and I started canning on Chatterbait, and I was making like $5 a day on Chatterbait. It was very difficult. I couldn't quite figure it out. I felt like you had to be really tech savvy, which I'm not the greatest at. I've come a long way since then, but that's kind of how I got my start in the industry. And I eventually started doing strip shows. I had an ex-pole in my tiny little apartment in downtown Raleigh, North Carolina, in a very small town, and just started doing basically live stripping shows on OnlyFans, and people loved it. They wanted the experience of a strip club at home. When I was stripping, I was actually going to school for occupational therapy. When I say occupation, it's not about job. They're called ADLs, activities of daily living. So whatever consumes your day and what you need to do in your day-to-day life, that's what an occupation is. Having sex is also an occupation. And especially if you have experienced illness or injury or recent surgery, knowing how to have sex safely or in a way that's meaningful for you is also something that occupational therapists come in and help you with. So that's kind of what I was studying in school. Obviously, I was learning a lot about neurodevelopmental disorders, and things kind of just started adding up. And eventually, some of my professors were like, hey, Cami, like, have you considered seeing someone about either being on the spectrum or having autism or some sensory processing disorders? So that's kind of where I figured out eventually that I am both on the spectrum and have sensory processing disorder. So what that kind of looks like for me is in crowds, I get very anxious. I don't know how to process a lot of information at once. Certain sights, sounds, smells, and textures and tastes are also really big for me. And what I describe myself as just being a picky eater, but it's simply called ARFID. It's like you basically limit the types of food that you eat because of textures. I'll basically get sick to my stomach. Basically, like psychosomatically, like I psych myself out of eating like sushi because like something tastes like too weird or like it feels too like gummy in my mouth or something. So my diet literally consists of like pizza and pasta and like super basic foods. And I am pescatarian, so it takes a lot of work to make sure I am not nutritionally deficient. That's why it's been really helpful for me to basically work on my own terms, because I'm able to work around a lot of things that bother me or trigger me on a daily basis. I had to move away from the city because it was just like way too much for me. I couldn't sleep. It was very loud in LA, all the sirens and lights. And that's sort of what autism looks like for me on a daily basis. I have a lot of help. I have some really great assistants that work for me that kind of help check in every day and keep me organized because my spatial organization is atrocious. I have a lot of different apps that I use and try to use to keep myself organized on a day-to-day basis and keep myself like my tasks organized. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit about me and my journey as a sex worker.
Yeah, is there anything that in the media that you wish was represented on autism?
I think in general, especially after like RFK Jr. does everything about we can't hold jobs. I'm like, I've been holding a job. I'm very successful. Now, I will say that traditional jobs, this is common, I think, with anyone that's entrepreneurial. And I found a lot of people in the industry are either on the spectrum or neurodivergent in some way. I do have in general a hard time, and previously had a hard time with standard 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of jobs. But I think that's more indicative of my entrepreneurial spirit more so than something to do with my autism.
Is there anything, especially now that you're really like in the porn world, is there anything that, you don't do? Like, do you go to the awards? Like, what do you feel about award ceremonies or certain collaborations?
Yeah, I basically do it all. I was an indie content creator for a while, and then about 2 years ago, I started to be my feet into the studio production, the professional side of things. We call it mainstream, which is funny because like mainstream in Hollywood means like mainstream like media and TV, like something you see at a movie theater, but we call it mainstream in the industry as well when it's like a professional production like Brazzers or Vixen or like Team Skeet, like basically like a large company owns it. I call it like big porn trademark. I don't own any of the content that I create for these companies, of course, but that's been interesting and has really forced me to expand as a performer and created a performer out of me because I was just literally just making sex tapes with whatever boyfriend I had at the time in my bedroom, and it was fine. But now the quality of everything I do has elevated quite a bit as a result of kind of dipping my toes into the studio world. And I still do some studio from time to time, not super often, but I like to work on sets that the crew and the director really care about what they're doing. They really love the adult industry. They would really love the product they're creating. But it is difficult from like a neurodivergent perspective, is like just meeting someone and fucking them immediately, basically. Because even people that I collab with for my own sites, it's people that I've known for a while, and I tend to work with the same people repeatedly, whereas I might just be showing up and I know who I'm working with ahead of time because they tell me. I look them up on like, on their socials and Twitter and all that, and I kind of give them the green light, like, yeah, this person seems great. It's never someone who's like a random or unexpected, but it does feel like a job. So it's very different for me where like I'm being told where to show up and what time, but it's a good practice for me to stay grounded in the real world a little bit. I'm always off and doing my own thing all the time.
It's interesting hearing about the organizational stuff because I know that even just like a lot of sex workers, including myself, period, struggle with that because like I feel like we've kind of allowed ourselves to like fall into the idea that like sex work is like something that just automatically you can show up to and forget that like there's so much prep sometimes for it.
Yeah, and there's like different I'm basically straddling two worlds, the indie side and the pro side, and there's always this like animosity, which I really find funny, but it's like two totally different skill sets and they don't always cross over. Whereas if you're an indie content creator to be successful, you really have to be business savvy. You really have to know how to like run your own business. But that doesn't necessarily make you a good performer. You might just make really like mediocre content but you just know how to market, right? Whereas on the other side of like the pro studio side, you have to be a banging ass performer. You have to look good all the time. You have to know how to act. You have to know how to really present yourself and know how to just kind of like wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
I feel like you straddle both of those worlds so well and so effortlessly.
Yeah. So the way I came out about being autistic is kind of a funny thing. I am a porno creator as kind of part of my marketing. And I made a video with a good friend of mine. His name is Alex Adams. And if you don't know much about my work, I do a lot of role play. I love to do unhinged plots because I love to rip and I love just ad-libbing in a very fun and fresh kind of way. But I have visual issues as well, and I'm dyslexic. So I have an e-reader and I used the Open Dyslexic font, which has been a huge game changer for me and me being able to read consistently again. And I brought it over to Alex's place to shoot a few months ago when he was in town. And I basically ended up doing a video entitled it like My Autistic Stepsister on Vacation or something like that. And I put in a title and I got a lot of hate because I think people didn't realize why are you sexualizing autism so messed up. I'm like, wait, no, I am autistic. And then once I like clarified, put a comment in the bottom on Pornhub, people are like, oh my God, thank you for like representing us. I'm like, yeah, like that's my Kindle and like I am actually autistic. And I do have issues with picking up on social cues, but that's kind of how I came out about it. And it was very cool to see all the messages I got like on OnlyFans about, other people being like shy about it or just people that could relate. It is technically a disability, but I think it's really just a differentiation of your neurology at a core level. You just kind of see the world in a slightly different way and you require a little bit different things than neurotypical people.
That's obviously a big question right now. What kind of representation do we want to see? And I want people to know that like we're not like there's like this representation in society of like being innocent and like not being sexual. So that is like so iconic.
Also just weird. Yeah, I think I've gotten like some comments and feedback like that too, where it's like, oh, I can't like jerk off to an autistic girl. I'm like, I'm still an adult. That doesn't change that. I'm doing things that are safe, sane, and consensual, and that's what matters at the end of the day. And sex is one of my special interests.
Do you feel like there's a sense of community or like a sense of community within like sex workers with autism? Is there more you'd want to see about community making, or do you feel it's not necessary?
I don't think that community is necessary, but I do think understanding is necessary. Like a few weeks ago, I had the Pornhub Awards, and I was just so overwhelmed because there's so many people that I'm like trying to say hi to and are trying to say hi to me, and I'm keeping the conversations like very short. I kind of like will leave abruptly and like, okay, thanks, so good seeing you, bye. And like I think as long as people understand that it's just because I'm overstimulated, a little overwhelmed. And I think that's common. I think a lot of people feel that way and are probably also worried that they're coming off like a but we all know it's fine. Like it's a lot. There's a lot of like loud music.
Love the answer. Yeah. So if there's any last words you want to share about the topic, and then also where can our Stripper News viewers find you and talk to you?
Yeah, I guess just my last thought is just I want people to know that people and adults with disabilities deserve to have a sex life. They deserve to have pleasure and feel pleasure, whether it's autism or Down syndrome or anything else, right? And that's something that, that's why I was in school for occupational therapy, was because I wanted to address sexuality in the medical field and because no one else was. So many doctors are still so shy talking about sex and having sex and how to have sex safely. So that's just something that's very important to me to get across. If anyone does want to find me, you can go to CamiStrella.com. That's CAMI. Last name is spelled STRELLA.com. You can find all my links on there.
Go talk to her. She's so sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you for making this work.
Bye.
Stripper News.
Autism is not a disease. It's not caused by anything.
So how do we treat autistic people?
With dignity and respect like we treat everyone else.
Kindness, maybe a lap dance or two.
Or four. Autism isn't the problem. Ableism is.
And so is our obsession with attributing human value to capital labor production. And that concludes our section in the Champagne Room on demystifying autism. Thanks to our guests.
You guys are like basically fucking famous with the lesbians, and I want you guys to know that.
We love the lesbians. We love the autistic lesbians.
Yes, thank you.
And that's all today for Stripper News. Now be a good boy and tell us what you learned. Stripper News.
Stripper News.